if we see to Belgium, and we have our elections, of course, they do form a government, but there is a basic, and it's also the same in France. There is a basic distrust between the minister and his administration. So in between, they put a cabinet, and the members of the cabinet, the collaborators, the direct collaborators of the minister, are chosen by the minister himself. And so some ministers know upfront. I already knew in 1998, and the elections were a year afterward, that Marc Cools already asked me, if I do become Minister of Justice, will you come to my cabinet? I said, of course I will come to your cabinet as such. It was the same, Pauwels, for example, working for the former Minister of Interior, Louis Tobac. So very close links direct to the policy. We had the same with Bryce de Ruijver, even on the cabinet of the Prime Minister, where Bryce was coordinating what was happening at the Justice Department, Interior Department, what was happening in the Defense Department. So it's really a layer put between a minister and his proper administration. The consequence is that as an individual working directly for your minister, you do have influence on the political game, on changing what is possible and not. I remember at that very moment, the government said we need a federal idea, a federal plan on security. So I wrote it for the minister. It was accepted by the entire government. It was even accepted by the Belgian parliament. There were some critics on it, but 20 years later, everything or almost what we put in is realized today. So as a criminologist, and if you want, and if you also, if you can't stand the heat, stay out of the kitchen. So I also have some critics from, it's a liberal view on crime, it's a liberal view on criminology, but nowadays we are moved 20 years, and almost everything is realized or as such, and they are still using the same frameworks. Unless it was a more liberal social democratic government, today is the mixed government, they are still using the same principles. And that's, I think, typical for Belgium. And you have the same with other colleagues coming from other universities, close links to political, ideological views on crime and criminology.
I don't think that is well known outside Belgium. I knew it for discussions with colleagues, because and then nobody writes about that, because I can understand that, okay, it will be a little bit self-praising, this is what I did, but at the same time, it is a pity that it is not well known, because, for example, when people talk about what criminologists do, and there are some books, there is a book, a Canadian book, Profession Criminologue, this is never mentioned, and
there is one PhD at Brussels University by Christopher Failly, and he was really interviewing, and I helped him because he interviewed the ministry, he interviewed a lot of members of cabinet, how he perceived it. It was the same with the PhD of Elke de Vroo. She also interviewed people, politicians, people who were working at ministerial cabinets. But also in Belgian political sciences, there are not much publications, there are not much research projects on the influence of a cabinet. A cabinet means close, direct collaborators of a minister. You have the system in France as well, but I was also interested in that kind of research, that kind of who is doing what. In France, you often see the discussion. In France, you sometimes have the discussion. Some of them do say criminology doesn't exist. Why it doesn't exist? Because it's not a profession, and you cannot go with the criminological education into the labor market. Okay, others, they do say, yeah, you can, but then you're very close to politics. For example, for a very long time in France, they had the Institut National des Hautes Études de Sécurité et de la Justice, full of scientists, and with a direct impact on the policy. But the majority of French criminology or sociology say, oh, no, it's too close, too linked to politics. I think in Belgium it's more open to say, okay, this is what is happening, and you can have critique, of course, and you can have scientific critics. But due to our political system, criminologists can have a huge impact on what is happening.
And that's it's quite incredible. And but these PhDs, they are written in Flemish or in English?
The PhD, I will check. Think he wrote it in Dutch, but he was preparing a publication. But I will check it.
Yeah, it's difficult because if you interview people in one language, then to translate this, but it is something that it's good to know, because, for example, this institute in France, they were doing a good work, and now they disappeared like that from one day to the other, and nobody knows. Of course, you could use their publications, but nobody pay attention to explain, okay, we're having this institute that's having this impact, then you could use it when they try to eliminate it.
Yeah, because in France you have the Cahiers de la Sécurité et de la Justice with profound research in it, but it was put in a corner. It was so linked to the government, to interior, to police, to gendarmerie, to the prison system, that it's not that spread, for example, in Belgium. Not a lot of Belgian criminologists who do know that there is a very good line of production of French research close to, and it goes back to the discussion, governmental criminology, non-governmental criminology of such.
Yeah. And just another question in this same topic about criminal policy. You know that in Switzerland we had these heroin prescription programs in the 1990s, and then in Belgium also for a few years you had these programs. And I was wondering if that was the influence of precisely of criminologists to introduce these programs. The thing is that also, the results, I think it was the university of, it was a French university that did Lieven, I think. They were working on the evaluation. So the results are not very well known, and the program did not last. But I was surprised that it was introduced as such. Do you have any idea of that program?
Yeah, what's happening, and you can call it also security, safety, contracts, pacts. At the very moment when Louis Taubac, he was a social democratic minister of interior, we saw on the political level that far right was coming up, and far right claimed the issue of crime. They always spoke on crime, and what we need is severe punishment, more prisons, people. And Louis Taubac, and it goes back, I think, to also the theoretical views of left realism. There is a crime problem. Let's speak on the crime problem. And so the Ministry of Interior invested in safety, security, prevention plans for communities if they want it or not. And they created a proper department in order to evaluate it. And afterwards, you see the institutionalization also of that kind of approaches. Big cities, Antwerp, Ghent, Brussels, Liège, Charleroi, today they all have their proper services who are dealing with prevention and so on. So the state put money in it, evaluated in it, and today you see an institutionalization, but on the lower level of the cities and the communities.
Thank you for following Lieven and Marcelo's Criminology Podcast, a podcast hosted by Marcelo Aebi from the University of Lausanne, Switzerland, and Lieven Pauwels from Ghent University, Belgium. We aim to draw a map of the state of criminology across Europe through the words of contemporary criminologists. How is criminology defined and taught? Which are the main lines of research? Which are the main schools of thought in each country? These and many other questions are answered here by fellow researchers who share their vision on the development of criminology in their countries from its beginnings to the second decade of the 21st century. If you want to know and compare their stories, stay tuned. This podcast is edited by Eduardo Coco from the University of Lausanne. Our theme song is Seagull's Night, Noche de Gaviotas, composed by Gustavo Cantero, arranged by Tato Germano, and played by Tato and Gustavo with the voices of Sasha Conte and Alejandro Turco Guyot. Cheers, and see you soon.